You were on the phone in a hazy glow, gold skylight.
Hey y'all, I'm Mindy Roberts. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm a small business owner in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey people, I'm Ren Adkins. I'm a commercial and editorial photographer and director based in the Southeast, but working worldwide.
Starting a show has been something that I favor podcasts as my medium of content absorption. And I love to be able to listen and walk around and do. And I started to take to Instagram stories to share after my therapy sessions with my psychologist, Sarah, what we were like breaking down, and started to get this really cool response from people because I also think therapy was on the rise during COVID, people actually going to like understand themselves. Having appointment only has been so important because we have really valued these conversations that we have together. And we do believe that there's a huge benefit to be had for any small business owner, specifically a female business owner, no matter your age, and just the things that we bump up against and how we help drive each other through them and support each other.
I think we also want to, model a healthy, deep friendship at our ages and between two women. And we want to talk about our shared struggles.
Yeah.
And I think doing this podcast for me is a little bit more of I'm pushing myself kind of situation.
You like to be behind the camera.
Yes, I am behind the camera. I'm not in front of the camera. I do not share deep things on social media ever. So this is going to be a first for me. But
Yeah,
I do think our connection is something that is special. And
totally.
I think it's awesome that we're going to be able to share it
Yeah.
with people.
I think also the other reason that we started this podcast is selfishly, it is so nice to have an outlet to just talk and communicate and put it out there into the world. And I've just absolutely loved the feeling I get when I've posted something on Instagram that was deep and very vulnerable, and the response that I get and feeling seen because I don't have a family. I don't have a mom that I can call. All I have really are my chosen family and my friends. And then I have Sarah, my psychologist. And so it's just this other little layer that makes my healing journey allow itself to take it a step further. And so while that's the selfish part of having the show, it's also just creating more connection. In our friendship, we don't agree about a lot. And I absolutely love that for us because it allows something that I think most friendships have, but does not surface, which is duality. And that it's not either or, it's both and how we both are very capable of supporting that as a theme in our experiences because it allows us both to remain in a growth mindset. And it's not like that's all the time. There's evidently a lot that we see the same and we bond over at very deep value sets. Ultimately, though, we often disagree.
Yeah. And we're not afraid to disagree with each other.
Exactly.
We trust each other. We value each other's opinion. And I think one of the things that was so fascinating for me about you was when I first came into your space, and I say this with love, but I was like, Mindy is very woo-woo. She's coming from a woo-woo place, which is not a place that I come from. I'm more of a 2 feet on the ground, trusting my surroundings, trusting science, not that you don't, but I really struggle with, faith and just believing that things will work out and believing that you're on the right path. There are a lot of things that you say that I have internalized and taken with me that I think really help balance me out in that way.
Our friendship has helped us come in on the margins of like your skepticism. I'm more now a curious skeptic versus just an opportunist idealist. And then
Opportunist? You're not an opportunist.
I think I'm an opportunist.
Maybe we have different definitions of the word.
Possibly, yeah. But I definitely identify as like a dreamer all day. It's a coping mechanism that I adopted at a very young age to get myself through my childhood, but it has served me working in sales.
We want to create a space not just for each other, but for our listeners to be able to say things that we feel like we can't say, especially as women business owners. Trying to navigate a complex system that we have to work within.
Yeah.
And so Speaking of audacity, that's what we want to do.
When we met,
Not
that long ago,
but
you are a wonderful example that you will find very strong friendships later in life.
I like that.
Yeah. I think my favorite part of meeting you was when you took a photo of that really lovely poem that I had in my house, and then I also had all these, like, words on the wall, and you were like, "Who is this bitch?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was fascinated.
and we were having the best time, and then we became Instagram friends, as one does in the 21st century, and we just would like each other's stories, we DM each other.
I feel like we kind of were feeling each other out.
It's a vibe check, baby.
It's a vibe check.
I invited you over for tea at Graham Street, which was my darling bungalow that I used to have. Many, many memories to Graham Street.
Let me talk about the bungalow. So the first time I came over, I was like, I've never met somebody like this. I walked in and there were like words of affirmation and, phrases from different books and quotes and things that were like taped up on the wall. And you had a piece of paper that I think it said equanimity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was
Sits
like
on my
sitting
bed.
in the middle of your bed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, my mind was blown. I was like, who is this person? And I was just like so fascinated the way that you talked. And I think you just have such an interesting perspective on the world that's so different from mine. And I was just immediately like, I got to be her friend.
Aw, that's so
Yeah.
sweet. Yeah.
So we met through a mutual friend who
Yes.
is also a photographer.
Correct.
And then we followed each other on Instagram. We felt each other out. We checked the vibe. And then I got the coveted invitation to come over and have tea with Mindy, which is not something that I do with most of my friends. Normally it's like, let's go thrifting or let's, get out and go do something that's kind of distracting. But with Mindy, it was like, I came into Mindy's sanctuary.
Yeah. That's
which
what I
is
called it.
a big word for Mindy.
Yeah.
We just went deep, like almost immediately. We talked for like 4 hours or some shit.
It was.
I remember Ronnie, my husband, texting me and being like, where did you go? Like, and it was kind of like I fell off a cliff into like a really deep friendship that is just very unique.
Yes.
Because we're so different. We're very different people in a lot of ways, but we somehow have this through line
Yeah.
that really connects us.
Yeah. I really like, how you like catch someone's eye at a bar and you're interested in them. I feel like I caught your eye when we were at my house.
Saw you from across the
Saw you
bar.
from across the room. But I caught your eye in that, like, you were taking in these words of affirmation that aren't things that I, like, wrote in a day and stuck on the wall. They were things that I wrote over the course of a year when I was just doing this huge deep dive. I was on a sabbatical from dating and was just, like, eating and consuming self-help books and podcasts and was just, like, soaking up this whole new reality for me as a young adult that, like, there's this whole world of healing. Yeah. And, I had this wonderful home that was only my space. It was COVID, so I was getting to leverage the excuse of not allowing people in my space. And I identify as an extrovert outside of my home. Introversion at home is very real for me, and it's just more of a guarding for energy purposes. But I loved watching you, taking the pictures of the words I'd written, and you were like, "Who wrote this poem?" And I was like, "Oh, I got this from this really cool person that was like typing things in the street one day, and I just stood there and they typed this thing up, and it was about me, and it just really like rung true." And getting to have you over for tea, like none of my expectations were not met in the level of like deep conversation that I was seeking. Because I think there are people out there that are just, it is who we are. We are cerebral, we are deep, we are motors, and we love to feel connected. And so it's an excitement, and it's really hard to come off of it when you don't get that. And we definitely had that day.
Well, what's interesting to me is I feel like you could have that with anybody. You're just really interested in people.
I am very interested in
I am not.
story. Yeah.
I'm very much not.
Yeah.
I think there are two types of people. The type of person who gets on an airplane and is smiley and open and like, I wonder who I'm going to sit next to. And then there's people like me, and I look like the Unabomber. I've got a hoodie on. I've got the hood up. I've got the sunglasses. I've got the headphones. I'm like clearly saying, do not talk to me.
Right.
And that's how I feel. I'm like, I'm not that interested in most people.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I mean, I can be surface level interested in people, but it's hard for me to go deep with just anybody.
Right.
And I think it's a lot, people are just generally more interesting to you.
They are. Yeah. Yeah. I've been like this since a little girl. And I think I got it from my father, honestly, a little bit. Like he was a little isolated, but then in a grocery store, he would talk to everyone. Also, being a redhead, people just like come up to you and they're like, "Oh, where'd you get your hair?" And you just
Really?
Oh, yes, from a young age. And the irony is, my dad would tell these little old ladies at the grocery. He would mess with them. He would be like, "Oh, we got it at Kmart. It's box dye." And he would just walk away, and they would be like, "What?" And it's not. It's obviously all natural. But that's part of it too, is I think that, like, people, like, just coming up to me as a child, but it's part of my personality. But I am very interested in other, and I like seeing how people tick and, like, what their story is. It's not always the truth. If I'm in a deal, I'm like you, I'm like, "Head down, don't mess with me." But on the average day, I have all this room. I'm like, "Let's fill it with people and connecting," and I do. I get energy from people. It's very real for me.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
Introverted all the way. I've learned how to fake it. I've learned how to be extroverted when I need to be, but it's not my comfort zone.
And what I love about our friendship is that polarity, but yet how we still bond. It's been so cool to develop this connection with you, Ren, because I've shared this with others that you are one of my few female friends who is also a small business owner, and how we bond over that. We also have some overlap in our family systems and things that occurred in our childhoods that we connect over, and how those play into our lives today. But I just immensely have appreciated that we've been able to have these tea times together at my house. We obviously like have gone to dinners and chatted up or things like that.
We don't only just drink tea. Our friendship has evolved,
It
but
has, yeah.
but
Yeah.
those are
Our formative
roots.
years
Yeah.
were the tea at Graham Street in the sanctuary, for sure. And sitting on the porch and, yeah, just yapping it up. It
Yeah.
was great. In addition, I've had to, like I said, come in, and you've been a wonderful resource for me to reframe and think and be like, "Yeah, no, that actually might not be the best dream," or let's modify it a bit with a dose of reality, more logic, things like that. And then in tandem, I've helped you, rethink often how that skeptic isn't serving you. And it's like, you do need to allow a little thought here towards just keeping it open. Let's see what happens. You just don't know. If we did, we would own an island and we would not be sitting here recording this.
I know we talked about you being a dreamer. I also identify as a dreamer. I'm not sure where my more skeptical side comes from, but I definitely feel like, I'm an artist. I live in my head most of the time, and I do identify as a dreamer, but not always. I think my inner critic, for the majority of my life, has just taken over, and my friendship with you has really helped me just have another voice in there.
It really supports that it depends on who you're facing. It's just like dating. If you have an anxious attachment, you might end up having an avoidant attachment with another person because of what they're bringing to the equation. And I just think that it's true that we all shift roles depending on the day, what's in front of us, what's on the docket, and just remaining flexible psychologically is really empowering. And I think that we actually have a deficit of that in society right now, where people aren't affording enough space and room for people to have their lived experience and how it informs their views, leading with compassion and being curious. And these are things that our friendship has really allowed. The other thing I think that we really own in on when we're together is the safety to feel that our relationship can hold saying hard things to each other.
Yep.
But the delivery is also typically very gentle.
Yeah.
You have never said anything to me that made me just completely shut down. And I've definitely had friends that they just didn't have the tools. And so I think that you and I's work that we've done separately, coming together in adulthood as friends,
Yeah.
has absolutely set us up for success
Mhm.
to have that space to hold for each other.
Yeah, and I think our roles shift depending on the day, depending on the situation. Sometimes I'm all up in my head and you have to bring me back down to earth, and sometimes vice versa. And I think that's a really strong quality in our friendship, that we can step into those roles when we need to support each other.
Yeah, there's truly room for optimism and realism in every conversation, always. In my experience in the world of podcasting and show hosting, I've always noticed this theme across the board that hosts all bring their own distinct voice. And more importantly, these fun phrases that you walk away with and you adopt and you start to incorporate in your daily life. And for us, we call them our isms. And so for our listeners, we really hope that Appointment Only helps people take these isms out into their world every day and are kind of like my experience with my psychologist, Sarah. In hard moments, she pops into my head and I'm like channeling her isms, her voice, these little phrases. What would Sarah say? Or, and the reinforcement that I think a lot of us need because we might have just not gotten it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have so many Mindyisms, as I call them. I mean, we talked about in your house, like literally the Mindyisms are there. We can see them. They're on the walls, not in like a conspiracy red string kind of way.
Right.
But you have a lot of Mindyisms that I take with me into the world.
And that's what I hope for people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's
One of your biggest ones is high vibes welcome.
always.
You say this on Instagram.
Yeah.
You say this before you go into a deal.
Yeah.
And so we're very hopeful that our listeners take that one with them specifically.
Yes. As a dreamer, I do have my limitations where I've been told to call into these greater guides because I do not identify as a religious person, but I can be a bit esoteric, a bit spiritual. And I've never really felt that full connection with the guides. But what I do connect with is people. And so I've never been scared to go to social media and say, hey guys, I got this like tricky thing happening. We just submitted an offer. High vibes are welcomed. You are my energy warriors. I'm going to lean on you for this. And then my DMs like blow up and everybody's like, let's get after it, and everybody, because I feel like they throw me their little energy source, right, of serving outcome. And so that's what we hope is that these can create serving outcomes for people and they're listening and joining us in these conversations.
With the podcast, we also want to have some audacity. I talked a little bit about how the podcast is going to be a challenge for me, how I'm pushing myself to be in front of the camera, to step outside of my comfort zone and to share more than I normally would. And so that's also another big goal is we want to have some audacity.
Yes. Yeah. And demonstrating, how that can expand into stepping up for yourself, understanding and getting clear on what your needs are, and just encouraging listeners to own their own audacity and that it's a word that we want to manipulate in a way that is helpful so that you don't think, oh, God, I can't believe they had the audacity. It's like, no, lean into that, embrace that. If you're a creative or you're a business owner, you're going to have some of that. You're your only advocate.
Yep. And we're flexing that muscle just in having the podcast. And I think that's really important for us.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you for getting from behind the camera, even though that is like your place where you were born to be. This is also your place too, because it's both.
Yeah, we're learning.
We are. We're growing.
It's not either or, it's both and.
It's both and, baby. A lot of the nexus for me for the podcast is also the moments in my life where I was quiet and really shouldn't have been. And a lot of it was because I hadn't tweaked that muscle, developed that muscle to essentially just say things that we can't really say, but it's because of old ideals of society that we've arguably outgrown.
Yep.
And need to be said.
Yeah. Speaking of audacity,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of it.
Totally. I'm very guilty of having some traits that are not serving to my putting myself in a place that's going to be uncomfortable, which is where growth lies, so that I can unlearn things that just simply don't serve me because I happen to have been born female. And understanding how that changes my experience in society and in some situations, and specifically my industry in real estate, especially when I was in commercial real estate, I'm going to have to work 3 times harder to be able to create any kind of material move. And so I think putting light on saying things that aren't normally said and figuring out ways to say them, because a lot of times delivery is what's most important, matters. And I think that it's also like in my industry in residential real estate, there is this expectation of like hoarding information and dying with your little black book of contacts and all of your intellectual property. And there has been a history of not sharing.
Same in my industry.
That
Yeah.
does not serve anyone.
Yeah, the gatekeeping and
Yes.
the secretive nature.
Right.
Worrying that people are gonna steal from you.
Yeah, and,
that's
like,
not the environment we're interested in.
just when it all flipped for me when I realized that, like, sharing is the best form of innovation and growth for an industry if you want to keep your industry going, because what are you gonna do? Hoard it all? Like, that makes no sense, and that's lies and scarcity mindset, and I think even saying the word scarcity to a client and saying the word abundance to a client should not be woo-woo.
Yeah.
Those are economic terms.
Sure.
Simple. Call it supply, call it demand. Figure out whatever words work for you, but also be comfortable and confident to say things in a way that is constructive and helpful and assertive.
One of the things that I think allows us to be audacious with each other is that we have somehow, I don't know if we did it intentionally, but we've created this space with each other where we can say anything to each other.
Totally.
And we have this safe space to test things out with each other. Like, I'm not afraid to come to you with any idea or thought or anything. I'm safe. I know I can express this to you. And I know that you will challenge me when I need to be challenged. And I know that you will tell me I'm on the right track when I'm on the right track.
Yeah, I always try to like wait for the invitation. That's been a big learning for me. In addition, being able to discuss money with a friend, ambition and dreams, burnout, you know, difficulty in romantic relationships and containers as well as friendships is something that you're not often going to get with a lot of people. But the minute that you strike it with someone, I highly advise that you try to take it deeper because it will often go in the direction of allowing more room. And I think once you get the experience of it, this has been my experience having a friendship with you, Ren, is I now seek that out in most of my friendships because, like, once you get a taste, you're like, oh man, this is fruitful. This feels good. I want more of this in my life. And you no longer really settle for the superficial. And for some people, that is their sweet spot. I do not want to diminish everyone's variety of needs.
Sure.
But I think that you and I both know, due to the work that we've done on ourselves, what our needs are and it's deep, meaningful connections.
Yeah.
Mutually beneficial friendships.
Yeah.
And to some people, they're going to be like, these are very basic things. And it's like, well, we both have trauma.
Yeah.
And so we've had to learn to allow these things. And I think, we know that we want the listeners to be able to go behind the scenes with us as we do in our friendship together, where we just discuss some of the most fucked up, chaotic things that you could never imagine. We laugh at them and we're sharing essentially real lived experience and wisdom that people can relate to, or they could be like, holy shit, I never knew that could happen, and can help prevent them from having it happen, maybe to the degree that we did, because I still think it's going to happen. That's how we learn. I don't want to rob anybody of the sovereignty of figuring out life. But I know that, you and I have discussed immensely that in some scenarios we bump up against people who are just gatekeeping, specifically women, because women have been taught to pine against each other in business and not really work together. And I think it's just awesome that we've created this table and we're going to invite other people to sit at it.
Yeah.
And
so you guys, the listeners, are going to be hearing us in our experimental. We're going to be testing things out with each other.
Totally.
And we're going to be learning as we go, because that's what our relationship is like.
Yeah. We're jumping out the plane and we're building the parachute as we fall to the ground.
That's right.
And so far we've landed every time pretty well.
Yeah.
But I think getting to model, like, just being transparent and just that I'm able to literally, like you just said, say anything to you. I never feel concerned to share something with you. And I know what that feels like, to have to hold on to something that I want to share, because the person's going to pick it apart. They're going to criticize it. They're going to take offense to my dream. And I've surrounded myself with a lot of people like that. And they're not necessarily bad people. They're just not my people.